and just shoves it in his mouth, and he's just like, oh, like everyone looks at him like, what did you just do?
I desire mercy, not sacrifice.
Ooh.
You would not have condemned the guiltless.
They're hungry. It's not like they're just like, oh, I fancy a snack, let me just break some Sabbath rules for a bit of a laugh. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and also welcome if you are new. I'm so grateful to have you all here. So my name is AkuaB, and here on this channel I cover all things faith, culture and encouragement. And as you can see from the title of today's video, I'm going to be continuing on with my reaction to The Chosen with season 2 episode 6 part 2. But before we get straight into that, I just want to quickly encourage you to leave a like down below on today's video, and also comment something that you enjoyed from this reaction, or just something that you took away from this episode in general. Also, if you haven't already, then please make sure that you are subscribed to this channel, and also turn on the notification bell so you never miss a future episode. And that is going to come in real handy this week, seeing as though I'm posting daily, so you never want to miss an upload for this week. So before we get straight into the video, I have introduced a new segment onto my videos called Bible Verse before we get into the video. So today's Bible verse actually comes from the book of James, and today's verse is from James chapter 1 verses 2 through to 4. So in this verse it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Okay, so the first thing I take away from that verse is that the first thing it brings up is consider it pure joy. And it's talking about trials and temptations. So this is just a prime example of how we're meant to be dealing with trials and temptations. And it's such a funny way to look at things, because when we're going through trials, persecution, any difficulty, then our automatic response in our flesh is to feel panic, anxiety, to run to something that comforts us, to kind of shrink and to put on defense mode, instead of counting it pure joy. So what does it mean to have pure joy in something? So let's just first talk about that word purity. Pure is undefiled, it's untainted, it's the original intent for something. It is not the abomination that you're facing in that present moment within that trial or that persecution or that temptation. So that purity in joy, that and it's joy goes beyond a feeling, it's a state. So we can have feelings that fluctuate all the time. We can feel happy, sad, angry, all of these different emotions, but joy, I consider joy to be more of a state. So that is what I read into this. So in this verse, we're being told to consider it pure joy. So we're told to go back to the original intent, go back to the innocence, go back to the state of joy. So we're meant to fully embrace joy in its purest state. Just a little add-on onto what I've just said. I just got this thought as I was rewatching that clip to edit it, and I was just thinking about how we're not given the spirit of fear. We're given the spirit of power, love, and of a sound mind. So we're being called out of that state of fear, of feeling overwhelmed, of feeling guilty, of feeling shame, and we're called in to a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind, which is a joyful state. I don't know anyone who has ever been in a position of power, of love, and in a sound mind state, and they've been like, I'm not happy, I'm not joyful, I'm just, so depressed. Like, we're being called into the state that we're meant to be in, that God has called us to. He's not called us into the spirit of fear. He's not called us into having shame. He's not called us to bear the burden of guilt and sin. So when we're actually obeying what these verses are saying and counting it all joy, we're not letting the situation that is in front of us define us. We're defining ourselves from Christ, from within outwards. And I think that's so important, to not let our external circumstances affect us internally. And that's definitely not easy to do. People go through all magnitudes of situations that you can't simply sprinkle a verse over and everything just goes away magically and you're at peace. But this is just a bit of encouragement for you all today. So I hope that you take from it encouragement and that you're encouraged for this week and for today. So yeah, I'm going to carry on with my rest of my Bible verse analysis, and then we'll get straight into the video. And then in verse 3, we're told that the testing of our faith produces perseverance. And who could actually do with some perseverance? Because I definitely can. Whenever you feel demotivated or you feel kind of overwhelmed with a situation, the thing that you need to do is to persevere. There's nothing like giving up in the middle of a challenge and then feeling kind of guilty or feeling less than after the fact. So that perseverance will pull you through to the other side. That perseverance will give you enough courage and motivation and stamina to be able to complete and go through that trial and really persevere, as it says. And then in verse 4, it goes on to say that let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking in anything. So when it's saying not lacking in anything, the testing of us, the refinement of us is what makes us stronger. If we're giving in to anything like left, right and centre, we're not growing, we're not learning from anything, we're just being in our fleshly state. We're not growing, we're not maturing, we're just kind of giving in to our own desires, our own temptations, and just going with the flow. And that is kind of the ways that the world teaches us to go about things. If we face trials, do what makes us happy. If we face resistance, just say whatever makes you happy, as long as you're not interfering with my happiness, that's cool. But it's saying here to persevere so that we may be mature and complete. So in this verse, it tells us that being mature and being complete is the goal, and to not be lacking in anything. So it's not telling us to be lacking, be like a child that's dependent and impulsive and volatile and sporadic. It's telling us to be mature and also to persevere. So that is what I took from that verse. Hopefully it relates quite well to episode 6 in part 2 with Mary's trials and how she's going to overcome those. So yeah, that is my verse for today. And on a finishing note, I would just sum it up as make sure we're being matured through our trials and not being overwhelmed by them. And the fruit of that perseverance is maturity and coming into completion. And it's a lack of dependency on our flesh. We can be strong in Christ, we can be filled and have what we need in Jesus. So yeah, that is what I took from that verse, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have anything else to add in the comments, make sure you do down below, and maybe even suggest some books for me to have a read through and verses to talk about in my verse before the video. So let's get straight into the reaction.
So all you're telling me is that he told somebody to carry his mat on Shabbat?
And invokes the title Son of Man from the prophet Daniel.
Yeah, many have. And
I do actually just wonder how these Pharisees actually lived, because in the Bible, obviously, especially when it gets to the later verses of each gospel, the later chapters even, there's just such a hunger for the persecution of Jesus and the disciples, and it's just like, I can't imagine the spiritual warfare that must have been going on to be using and manipulating these Pharisees, even though that's their will in their hearts, to out of the hardness of their hearts, the intensity of their hatred and the desire for persecution of Jesus. Like,
maybe something happened at Capernaum, but you're not certain it was the same person.
I am certain.
Right. And your second witness?
My colleague Yusuf
was not at the pool, and neither were you.
I was there.
I'm sorry, but this case is very thin. President Shimon does not preoccupy himself with minutiae.
Minutia?
If I may be so bold.
Which violations of God's immutable law does President Shimon deem worthy of his attention?
You're not listening, Yanni. Just like you haven't in the past. That is why you still hold a low station.
I would like to know as well, if Shabbat violations are not worthy of Shimon's time, what is?
Of 613 commandments, there are some which, when pitted against one another under certain circumstances, create pain for our people who are already suffering.
The law of Adonai is perfect. reviving the soul.
Let us return to the matter of witnesses. In the Torah, the testimony of how many witnesses is required to judiciously establish a fact?
2.
And if a husband dies and his wife is the only one to witness his death, what does it make her?
A widow. An aguna, an abandoned woman because there was not a second witness to his death.
And if she remarries?
It makes her an adulterer and her children illegitimate.
Well, can you not see the cruelty of that? These are the laws that Shimon, like his father Hillel, is seeking to reform. His care is for women, for widows, for the undervalued, for the vulnerable. Yours seems to be about people carrying mats on Shabbat.
Blasphemy is not harmless. Dunash, think of the political value.
I think this is so interesting, the way that they're trying to convince him into action, because during my Bible study I've come across the fact that there wasn't particularly discrepancies upon like in the ruling of different rabbis and teachers, but they definitely had different severity when it came to strictness and their methodology and their rules surrounding the law. So you'd go to one rabbi and he'd have a slightly different or slightly more liberal viewpoint or methodology than another rabbi. So it's interesting to see the way that he is definitely more on the liberal side compared to these Pharisees. They're wanting the persecution, they're wanting him to go like full steam ahead and persecute Jesus and his followers, whereas he's kind of like, I don't really see the weight to this issue just yet, so it's not that high on my priority list.
I'm only telling you that Shimon is extremely focused. He will not expend energy on this case. Shalom.
Sin, blatantly commanding someone to violate Shabbat, in addition to blasphemy. President Shimon would call that a thin case.
Nash was totally dismissive.
Now he is arrogant because he believes he's the final word. He thinks there's no consequence in talking down to us.
It's hopeless.
To us, it's interesting the words that they use. They're not talking about God in that situation when it gets heated, when it gets intense. He thinks he's above us. It's about us, not about God. It's very interesting.
No. It's just getting started. Now we go to the other side, the rigid one.
Shammai?
I was hoping to create more chaos by working through Shimon, but...
The rigid one. So there's usually a more liberal teacher and then a more strict one, a more rigid one, as he said.
Perhaps Shammai will respond to our stories with such fury, this will work better anyway. Once, during the Feast of Tabernacle, Shammai's daughter gave birth to a son, Shmuel. He climbed up onto the roof of the chamber where she and the boy lay and tore open a hole in the plaster just to make it a sukkah.
Yes, and his philosophies have weight in the Sanhedrin, which helps. But what if he finds out we saw President Shimon first?
Not what if. We spell it out for him. Shammai and Shimon are philosophical rivals. Here we have a matter of law that President Shimon doesn't have time for. It's a perfect issue for Shammai. Shimon will have no explanation as to why he didn't take this seriously.
Why does it take all this?
Yeah, she's back. Aww. I love that, the way that she came back, and obviously she was like, I don't want to go back, like I can't go back, and then they've just embraced her, put her head covering back on, like embraced her and just, there's no berating her, that it's just welcome, and it's just like the prodigal son, like open arms, comfort.
Philip returned with news. John the Baptizer was taken into custody.
In the Herod's most heavily blockaded prison. High security.
I guess it was pretty bad. They were rough. They hurt him.
Does Jesus know?
Mm-hmm.
Has Andrew heard?
Just tell me. No, it's not going to be okay.
Do you need anything?
Where is he?
In his tent.
Should I wait?
No. I will take it to him.
It's not you. There's quite a lot going on right now. So it's good to have you back.
I don't know what to say.
I don't require much.
I'm so ashamed. You redeemed me and I just threw it all away.
Well, that's not much of a redemption if it can be lost in a day, is it?
I just think that quite interesting. People are on different sides of the aisle when it comes to once saved, always saved. And yeah, it's a difficult one to talk about. I'm still not undecided, because I think that, especially the work that God has done in me, like, I can't imagine just losing that, because it doesn't depend on me. Obviously, the fruit of your life and the way that you live your life matters, but I just think that, if you go through something as traumatic as this, like just in this particular example, she's been through so much, and like he said, in just one day you can just lose all of that. Like, it's not about your works, and I think that's the thing that it really comes down to. It's not about us, it's about God, God's character and what he did for us, by basing our salvation on a few of our own actions, not to minimize those, but that is not the essence of our salvation. Our salvation is by grace through faith alone.
I owe you everything. But I just don't think I can do it.
Do what?
Live up to it. Repay you. How could I leave? How could I go back to the place I was? And I didn't even come back on my own. They had to come get me. I just can't live up to it.
But that's what friends are for. This is why Christian community is so important, because you can fall and you can stumble and not be able to get yourself back up. You might not even realise that you're in that ditch that you're in and that you've fallen into, or even willingly stepped into and you can't get yourself out, or you're just too comfortable and complacent in your old lifestyle now that you don't even realise the need and the desperation to get yourself out. And that's why your Christian brothers and sisters and mentors can pull you out of that and really go and seek you and find you. Because, sometimes you get into situations like this and you can't rely on yourself. So that's quite important, to just have that community and have that bond with people, that they not only care enough about themselves to be able to be working their salvation out with God, but also to look out for you and to encourage you and to pray for you and to bring you back to God when you go astray.
Well, that's true. But you don't have to. I just want your heart. A father just wants your heart. Give us that, which you already have. And the rest will come in time. Did you really think that you'd never struggle or sin again? I know how painful that moment.
Oh. I think when I first got saved, I was kind of in like a bubble, a Christian bubble, and it was just like it was such an innocence, and that's the only word I can use to describe it. It was such an innocence and like a blissful state that when temptation and like sin tried to knock at my door again, it was kind of like, whoa, like, whoa, this doesn't belong here. Like, what are you doing here? And God never promised us that we wouldn't be tempted. We're actually told about temptation and how to handle it. We're never told that we would not be tempted, and that sin wouldn't come knocking at our door. It's on us to be able to react to that and respond to it, more importantly, to be able to respond to that in a godly and Christ-like way, to pick up our cross and deny ourselves over and over again.
What was for you?
I shouldn't.
Someday. But not here.
I'm just so sorry.
Look up.
I can't.
You can. Look at me. I forgive you. It's over.
You're certain Herod said forever?
Yeah, I think that's what the life imprisonment means. They signed the declaration on the spot.
Oh, I feel like I'm on the brink of tears every second I watch this. Either that or on the brink of laughter. But like, this just reminds me of the verse where it says, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. That relationship that you have with your Christian brothers and sisters needs to be a deep and genuine one. There is no replacement for that. It's like if you have someone that's close to you in your life, a brother, a sister, a friend, a mentor, that's a genuine connection, and you cannot fake a genuine connection. When someone is going through hardship, you're emotionally, mentally going through hardship with them, even if you're not physically going through what they're going through. If they're happy and rejoicing, you genuinely rejoice with them. And to see the way that Andrew is distraught about the imprisonment of John the Baptist, it just goes to show the genuine connections that are reflected within the disciples, within the followers of Jesus, and how we should reflect that as well. I just think the genuine relationships in this show and the way that they're conveying that is so inspiring to see, because, you know, this is what we should have as brothers and sisters in Christ, because we're genuine brothers and sisters.
Blood.
We'll never see him again. You can break him up. I know some people.
The Zealots against Herod's army. That's a fight I'd pay to see. It's maximum security up there.
That would make it more fun.
Oh.
No. You're not a part of that order anymore. You're a part of this one.
We shouldn't limit our options, is my point.
Now isn't the time for that. I'm afraid the situation is worse than you know.
What could be worse? It never used to happen to me before I met you guys. I'm sorry to interrupt, Rabbi. It seems that there's...
Yes, let them in, Matthew.
Rabbi,
Thomas.
I recognize there is a lot happening, and right now may not be a good time.
What is it?
We only have lentils left to eat for tonight's Shabbat dinner, and after that we are completely out of food.
Nothing left?
I'm so sorry, Rabbi.
Seems like something we should seek my father about. Pray? It is almost Shabbat after all. I know of a synagogue nearby.
The nearest settlement is Wadi Keld, and I don't think they give out free meals.
Tell everyone we head out in the morning.
Logically, prayer does seem a bit absurd in situations like that, but God will come through. God always comes through, and yeah, I think that's the supernatural kind of baffling mentality that if you're outside faith seems ridiculous, but as people of faith it makes sense because it works. Like, God is good and he is faithful.
Shabbat Shalom, Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom, Amen.
You've been to the synagogue, Rabbi?
No, I have not, sir.
Why this synagogue, Rabbi? It's not on any of our maps.
That's a good question. Have you noticed that no matter where we go recently, we are more and more misunderstood?
Definitely.
It's a very complicated time. It grieves me that Mary was not welcomed at the synagogue in Jericho when she first arrived in distress.
They turned her away. She didn't mention it.
Come on, she's a woman. She didn't expect their help, but she needed it. Add to that, John's arrest. Could say I'm feeling nostalgic for a small town.
No one born of a forbidden union may enter the assembly of the Lord. Even to the 10th generation, none of his descendants may enter the assembly of the Lord. No Ammonite or Moabite may enter the assembly of the Lord. Even to the 10th generation, none of them may enter the assembly of the Lord forever. Because they did not meet you with bread and with water on the way.
Shalom.
Even to the 10th generation, none of them may enter the assembly of the Lord.
Oh, what's gonna happen? I'm scared. Oh no. This is one of those moments where it's like Jesus is just gonna get like some kind of pushback, and I'm just
Forever.
Merci.
Oh, he's got some kind of
Because they
affliction.
did not meet you with bread and with what? Excuse me, what are you doing?
What is your name? Elam.
Oh,
Your friend Elam.
he's that guy.
Has a withered hand.
Are you a healer? It is not lawful to heal on Sabbath.
Wow. How evil must it be to be like, when I read that verse for the first time, especially coming to faith, I just remember thinking like, why would you not want to see someone healed, even from a non-faith perspective, even without putting your faith in Jesus? If someone wants to do good and you want to stop them from doing that because of your laws or regulations, that just seems ridiculous to me, and it seems so cold-hearted.
Which one of you who has a sheep and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath will not take hold of it and lift it
Who
out?
are you to speak to our congregation in such a
Of
way?
how much more value is this man than a sheep?
Stop this at once.
Come here. Come stand here. It's okay.
Elam, sit down. We don't know this person. He could be a shaman.
Is it lawful on Sabbath to do good or to do harm? To save life or to kill?
This affliction does not threaten his life.
It does not even affect his health.
Lift it up.
I know it's CGI, but that is just... Imagine actually seeing this in person. Oh my gosh, like...
Stretch it up. It's good, huh?
If he was supposed to be healed, God would have done it himself.
Interesting point.
Shit! I don't...
Gladly.
Blasphemer! What is wrong with you?
Apparently everything.
Wait! Come back!
They were just like, blasphemer, this and that, and they're not like, come back.
I think those guys are the town guards. So, for those of you who didn't see, first he interrupted the reading simply by standing next to this guy with a paralyzed hand. the priest. What?
Reaping or harvesting on Shabbat.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, I've been so hungry I forgot what day it is.
Oh yeah, they are hungry, aren't they?
You may.
Out of the way. You have made a mockery of our little synagogue and of Torah.
You will tell us your name, your lineage, your... First you, and then your disciples, are doing what is not lawful to do on the Sabbath.
Have you not read what David did when he was in need and was hungry? He entered the house of God in the time of Ahimelech, the priest.
I love when they show the historical way back biblical stories, because like at the start of the episode they'll show like an excerpt from the narrative a while ago, and it's just interesting to see how it ties in to Jesus's ministry and what he does. It's just so interesting in the way that they actually show the characters and they bring them to life and all of that stuff. It's just really nice to see.
And ate the bread of the presence, which was not lawful for him to eat, but only for the priests.
You would compare yourself to David. It was an emergency.
Or have you not read in the law how on Shabbat the priests in the temple profane the Sabbath, but are guiltless?
That's for Levites. Are you a Levite of priestly lineage?
Listen carefully. Something greater than the temple is here. And if you had known what this means, I desire mercy, not sacrifice, you would not have condemned the guiltless. Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So, the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath.
The Son of Man.
Let's go.
Mic drop.
Son of Man. It seems to upset a lot of people. Why?
Tell you later.
They probably won't even read it. This is what he killed, not Bethany or Jericho. They routinely forget to send us memoranda of liturgical changes for synagogue practice.
And if we don't alert the Sanhedrin,
Then we sin by omission.
he even had women following him. 3.
Be sure to add that.
If that doesn't catch their
But the
attention.
Sanhedrin is distracted between Rome and the fractions and the zealots and the protests and Herod and Caesar. Their attention is diluted.
Who would have dreamed? Someone claiming to be the Son of Man
The one who approaches the Ancient of Days.
and Lord of the Sabbath, walking into a tiny synagogue.
What he killed? Jerusalem. David, Goliath. Maybe there is hope for the little. The
blasphemies and crying to get attention.
And then it will end up at the bottom of a pile on some secretary's desk. We could go to Jakarta. There will be people of import among the protests. We could tell them as well.
Yes. We will do both. Who knows? All we can do is fulfill our duty to report the facts. And pray.
For what?
I remember at my Bible study, I was just reading over the fact that everything that the Pharisees are doing, it is logical, it is right to a certain extent. The only discrepancy is that this is the Son of Man. This is Christ. So it's like, yes, what they're doing is justifiable outside of this circumstance, but this is the Son of God. Like, you cannot what Jesus said earlier, he said, if you would have known, like, you wouldn't be doing this at all. You would have had mercy and all this stuff. So it's really on them what they're doing. This isn't the right thing to be doing, obviously, as we're seeing, but this part is so interesting, how we're seeing all of the Pharisees and the teachers complain about Jesus, and we're kind of seeing the emergence of this actual serious accusations being put forward.
Justice.
Wow. Okay, so that is the end of today's reaction. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. So let's get into a quick breakdown before we go into the outro. So initially we start off with Mary being found, being brought back to Jesus, being brought back into community with the other disciples, and then we get into Jesus and the disciples heading into a small synagogue for prayer because they've started to run out of food. Was it Andrew? No, it wasn't Andrew. I think it was Thomas, who was the one kind of dealing with the food, was talking about the lack thereof. So they were going to pray as Jesus had suggested. So it wasn't about the material food that was lacking, but it was about their faith, about their prayer, and about their relationship with God. So that is what Jesus suggested for them to do, to go to this small synagogue. And that is where things start to kick off. So let's first talk about Mary being brought back. So when she first came back, she was like in bits, like on the way. She was upset. She was, she could still see the kind of drained state that she was still in. Obviously exhausted and all of that. So when she came back, then she was embraced, she was welcomed, comforted, and then Mary said that she would take the other Mary back into Jesus's tent so that she could have a conversation with him and all of that stuff. So they had that conversation. Jesus just asked for her heart, asked for her submission, asked for her to just come back to God. So that's what she did. They had a nice reconciliation, and that was just great to see the heart of God in that scene, because God chastises his children, and that lets us know that he loves us, he wants to correct us and refine us, but also there's a time for comfort and consolation, and just really bringing us back to that state that we need to be in, which is to take joy in the trials that we go through, as I mentioned in the chapter from James at the start of the video. So he's brought her back to that, to just count it joy, to have faith in the Lord again, to not be in that state of guilt and shame, to leave that all in that mistake that she made, and to come back into right relationship with him, and have that state of joy back. And then we went into the whole food issue, and that is what got the disciples and Jesus on the road to the small synagogue. And this is actually quite a dramatic scene within the Bible itself, because it's talking about the contention between the ministry of Jesus, and then the laws of the Pharisees and the way that they implemented rules and regulations around the law. So they have obviously law about the Sabbath and things like that. So there's rules and regulations that you just cannot and do not, and they would not break. So then when Jesus and his disciples walk into the synagogue, they're automatically getting stares, like, who are these people? Because they're obviously not locals, they're obviously not people that are in regular attendance at the synagogue. And then obviously there's a few women as well, so they're probably getting extra looks from that. So they go in, and Jesus automatically notices a man who is sat there with a withered hand, and this withered hand looks like it's been out of action for a very long time. And just seeing that, because when I read the Bible, obviously it's a bit of a different vibe. It's kind of just like someone's sick, then they have faith, then they get healed, and it's kind of a little arc that it just like nicely flows. Whereas seeing it in person, like seeing it visually in a program, you're more like, wow, this is actually someone's life, and seeing the deformity and all of that stuff. And then when Jesus starts to ask him about it, ask about his name and things like that, then the rabbi and the religious higher ups there start to pay attention to what he's doing and kind of give him the eyes, as if to say, like, what is this guy doing? Like, he shouldn't be doing this here of all places. So they come over and cause a scene, basically distracting from the teaching, and Jesus proceeds to heal the guy. And I just think it's so interesting how they're so focused on what he's doing and when he's doing it, rather than the purpose and intention behind what he's doing. They're obviously upset that he's doing it on the Sabbath, when they've had rules and regulations that there shouldn't be any kind of work done on the Sabbath, there shouldn't be any kind of, healing, all of this different stuff. And then Jesus obviously brings up, if someone lost a sheep in a ditch or something, would you not go and pull it out, even if it was on the Sabbath? And they're kind of like up in arms about it, like very resistant about answering that, and just think he's blaspheming and all this stuff. So then they swiftly and promptly leave this synagogue after Jesus has healed this man. So that's quite a momentous moment. And then straight after that, obviously Simon just reaches and like grabs some of the wheat from the field or the corn and just shoves it in his mouth, and he's just like, oh, like everyone looks at him like, what did you just do? Like, so even they have some kind of ingrained law that's in their mind that is like, we can't do this, we can't. And then Jesus is like, you know what, you're hungry, like, go ahead. And he gives them the green light. So then all of the disciples are like happy and going after this food and like picking it all and like eating it and all of this stuff. And you just see this moment of, it's not even like gluttony or, rebellion and stuff. It's more like they're just having their daily bread. Like they're hungry. It's not like they're just like, oh, I fancy a snack, let me just break some Sabbath rules for a bit of a laugh. Like they're genuinely hungry and all of this stuff. They've come to the last of their food, the last of their resources. So when Jesus gives the go ahead, and the rabbi and I don't know if it's a Pharisee, but they come running out after them and are like, further laws that you're breaking, like what is this? Like, blasphemy, and they're asking for his lineage and all of this different stuff. So I find it quite interesting that it ends on that, with the Pharisees / rabbi plotting on how to bring this matter of what has just happened within their small local synagogue to some higher ups. So we'll definitely see the progression of that and how far this is going to go. Obviously we all know the story if we've read our word, so it'll just be interesting to see the way that they depict that and the way that they scale the progression of Jesus's persecution and the disciples as well. So I know it's going to be an emotional roller coaster. I don't know if I'm prepared. I'm probably not, but we're going to go there. So yeah, I'll catch you in my next one. Stay blessed and bye.